The second the blackout strikes, everything changes. Darkness flips the script. Neighbors become competitors, friends become takers, and the tiniest things in your house suddenly turn into survival gold. These aren't luxuries. They're the tools that keep you safe, warm, and fed when the grid goes down. And here's the hard truth. If you hand them out, you'll probably never get them back. When it's your turn to need them, you'll pay the price. Maybe more than you can afford. Today, we're counting down 7 everyday items you should never let out of your hands before a blackout. Miss even one, and it could cost you big. Don't wait until it's too late. Hit that subscribe button right now so you're always one step ahead when the lights go out. 1. Solar-powered lanterns. When the blackout hits, the one thing everyone scrambles for is light. Without it, you're not just sitting in the dark, you're vulnerable. That's why solar-powered lanterns aren't just a luxury. They're survival gold. Unlike candles that burn down or flashlights that chew through batteries, a good lantern keeps glowing night after night, as long as you've got a bit of daylight to recharge it. Think about it. Cooking after sunset, patching a leak, or just checking your perimeter becomes nearly impossible without light. Darkness makes even small tasks dangerous. One wrong step and you've got a sprained ankle or a cut you can't properly treat, injuries that could become serious in a crisis. A solar lantern keeps your space functional and safe, and it does it without draining your stockpile of batteries. And here's where it gets critical. Lending one out. The moment you hand a lantern to a neighbor or friend just for the night, you've essentially given away part of your safety net. In survival scenarios, people rarely return what they borrow, especially when that item is keeping their family calm, fed, and alive. Lanterns aren't just about visibility. They provide psychological stability. Families, especially kids, cope better with a steady light source. It lowers fear, prevents panic, and keeps morale from collapsing. In pitch-black conditions, stress skyrockets, tempers flare, and poor decisions follow. A warm, steady glow helps keep everyone grounded. Then there's the barter factor. After a collapse, reliable light sources will be in such high demand that you could trade one for food, tools, or medicine. A solar-powered lantern is more than a gadget. It's a currency. So if you lend one out, you're not just losing a light, you're losing leverage in the survival economy. Bottom line, protect your lanterns like you protect your food. Because in the dark, light isn't optional. It's life. 2. Heavy-duty cast-iron skillet. Most people underestimate cookware until they lose access to electricity or gas. When the blackout hits, your shiny non-stick pans turn into useless decorations. A cast-iron skillet, though, that becomes your kitchen's backbone. Why? First, versatility. Cast iron works anywhere. Over a campfire, on a wood stove, in a solar oven, even sitting directly on hot coals. When the grid is down, that adaptability is priceless. You can fry, bake, simmer, and even boil water with one pan. And here's the kicker. Cast iron holds heat. Once it's hot, it stays hot, which means you burn less fuel while cooking. In a world where every stick of firewood matters, efficiency like that buys you time and resources. Durability is another factor. A good skillet can last generations if it's cared for properly. In a post-collapse world, you can't just order a replacement online. Lose it, and you might never find another. That's why lending one out is a mistake you can't afford. If you let a neighbor borrow it for a day, don't be surprised if it never comes back. In desperate times, people cling to what helps them eat, and a cast-iron skillet is exactly that. But survival isn't just about cooking. It's also about security. A cast-iron skillet doubles as a blunt weapon. It's heavy, solid, and in a pinch, it can protect you as much as it feeds you. That alone makes it worth guarding. And just like lanterns, cast iron has barter value. In a survival economy, people will trade food, medicine, even fuel to get their hands on one. But here's this rule. Trade it only if you're ready to lose it forever. Handing it out on loan, that's the same as giving it away. In short, your skillet isn't just cookware, it's survival insurance. Once the lights go out, you'll realize just how irreplaceable it really is. 3. Manual water pump. Water isn't optional, it's survival. And when the taps go dry, people panic fast. That's why owning a manual water pump puts you in a completely different league than the unprepared masses. While others are hauling buckets from streams or praying bottled water lasts, You'll be pulling gallons straight from the ground with nothing more than muscle power. The beauty of a manual pump is its independence. No grid, no batteries, no fragile electronics, just reliable, repeatable access to water as long as your arms still move. That's not just convenience, it's survival security. A working pump means steady water for drinking, cooking, cleaning, even small-scale gardening. It takes you from scraping by to sustaining, and here's the part no one wants to admit. Lending it out is dangerous. In a blackout world, water equals power. If your neighbor borrows your pump, you've basically handed them control of their survival. Desperation changes people fast. When their family's thirsty, do you really think they'll hand it back? More likely, they'll convince themselves keeping it is worth the risk. Another reason pumps are irreplaceable is durability. With minimal maintenance and a few spare parts, a manual pump can last decades. That makes it one of the most valuable items in a post-collapse barter economy. You could trade one for nearly anything, but again, only if you're ready to lose it permanently. Strategically, owning a pump also gives you mobility. If you're forced to leave your home, you can relocate it to a bug-out spot and still guarantee water access. That's the kind of flexibility that could save your life when everything else fails. Bottom line, water is the first most urgent survival priority, and a manual pump isn't just a tool, it's your lifeline. Protect it, guard it, and never lend it out, because once it's gone, so is your control over the most essential resource of all. 4. Insulated survival flask. In the middle of a blackout, small comforts turn into big survival advantages. An insulated survival flask isn't just about sipping hot coffee or cold water, it's about resource control. Without power, you don't have refrigeration, and you don't want to burn through fuel every time you need hot water. That's where a good flask steps in. Think about this. You boil a pot of water once, pour it into your flask, and you've got safe, hot hydration for the next half day. That's less fuel burned, less smoke giving away your position, and less effort spent maintaining fire. In winter, those few sips of steaming water can keep your core temperature stable. In scorching heat, cold water stored in your flask can keep you on your feet instead of flat on your back from dehydration. Here's the part most people miss. In a collapse, a flask becomes a stealth tool. You can keep your liquids hot or cold without firing up a stove, lighting a flame, or producing the smells that scream someone has food to desperate neighbors. Survival isn't just about having resources, it's about keeping them hidden. Durability also sets a flask apart. Unlike flimsy plastic bottles that split, melt, or leach chemicals, a stainless steel insulated flask can take a beating. Drop it on concrete, throw it in a bug-out bag, or leave it in freezing temps. It still works. That makes it a long-term survival item you can count on. And then there's barter value. Imagine a mother trying to keep water sterile for her infant, or an older neighbor desperate for hot tea to stay warm at night. Your flask suddenly becomes more than a container. It's a bargaining chip. Food, medicine, tools. People will trade big for the ability to store hot or cold liquids when the grid is down. Now here's the trap. Lending it out. The moment you let a flask leave your hands, chances are you'll never see it again. In desperate times, nobody wants to part with something that makes survival easier. They'll justify keeping it because for them, that flask is now security. Bottom line, an insulated flask saves resources, protects your health, and keeps you under the radar. Guard it like your food or your water, because in many ways, that's exactly what it is. 5. All-weather storm matches. When the lights go out and the cold creeps in, fire becomes non-negotiable. But here's the truth. Your average grocery store matches are worthless in real survival conditions. They snap, sputter, and die at the first hint of wind or rain. All-weather storm matches are different. They're engineered for the worst-case scenario, and in a blackout, that's exactly what you'll be facing. These matches don't just spark, they roar. They burn hotter, longer, and stronger than anything you'll find in a convenience store. Rain? No problem. Wind? They power through it. Drop them in a puddle, dry them off, and they'll still ignite. That reliability makes them one of the most underrated survival tools you can own. Why do they matter so much? Because fire isn't just warmth, it's your lifeline. You need it to boil sketchy water, cook whatever food you've managed to store, dry soaked clothes, and keep predators, human or otherwise, at bay. Without fire, you're not surviving long in a grid-down world. Picture this: freezing rain, your hands shaking, your fuel damp, A regular match snaps and fizzles out instantly. A storm match. It burns hot enough, long enough, to light even soggy tinder. That's the difference between shivering all night and having a roaring fire to keep you alive. And let's talk about value. In a collapse economy, storm matches become currency. You can hand someone a small waterproof container with a dozen of these inside, and you've just given them the ability to purify water, cook food, or stay warm. That's worth serious trade. Food, batteries, antibiotics. People will put those on the table if it means they can light a fire on demand. Another thing storm matches have going for them is stealth. Unlike lighters that hiss or stoves that smell, matches are quiet and disposable. You strike one, it burns, and it's gone. Nothing left but a small stick of ash, no obvious signs you're sitting on resources. In a world where showing what you've got can make you a target, that matters. And just like the flask, once you lend out storm matches, they're gone. Nobody gives back fire. If you let someone borrow a canister just until they get on their feet, don't expect it to return. Desperation has a way of rewriting morals, and when survival's on the line, people keep what they need. Bottom line, fire is survival. Storm matches guarantee it in conditions where nothing else will. Stock them, hide them, and above all, never lend them out. 6. Windup alarm clock. Before the blackout, a Windup alarm clock might look like nothing more than a relic gathering dust on your nightstand. But when the grid collapses and your smartphone dies for good, that relic turns into one of the most underrated survival tools you can own. Why? Because in survival, time is more than convenience. It's control. Unlike digital devices, a mechanical alarm clock doesn't rely on batteries, charging cables, or Wi-Fi. You give it a twist, set the hands, and it keeps ticking through rain, snow, and blackout nights. That makes it one of the few pieces of tech you can actually trust when everything else goes silent. Think about the scenarios. Need to boil questionable water for exactly 10 minutes to make it safe. Your clock keeps you precise. Taking medication that must be spaced hours apart, it keeps you consistent. Planning a midnight meetup with allies or switching guard duty shifts in the dead of night, a Windup alarm ensures nobody oversleeps and nobody guesses wrong. In a collapse, sleep is dangerous. Close your eyes for too long without a plan, and you could wake up to find half your supplies gone. That's where the alarm comes in. It turns your watch schedule into a reliable system, even when exhaustion tempts you to drift. Durability is another edge. Smartphones shatter, batteries die, circuits fry. A solid Windup clock, drop it, dent it, wind it again. It still works. Many old models last decades with nothing more than basic cleaning. They're EMP-proof, weatherproof, and almost maintenance-free, and don't overlook barter. In a long blackout, timekeeping becomes a rare skill. Farmers need planting schedules. Traders need meeting hours. Communities need rotations. The person who can measure time becomes the person others depend on. Owning a working alarm clock puts you in that category. Here's the bottom line. In the chaos of collapse, time will slip away for most people. The ones who can measure it, track it, and use it wisely will have an edge over everyone else. That edge is survival. So, if you've got an old Windup clock buried somewhere, don't toss it, stash it. When the digital world dies, it'll be the one thing still keeping time. 7. Heavy-duty extension cords. Extension cords are one of those boring household items nobody thinks twice about, until the power grid goes down. In normal life, they're for Christmas lights or vacuuming across the room. But in a blackout, they're lifelines. Here's the reality. Post-collapse, power won't come from wall outlets. It'll come from scattered sources. Generators, car batteries, solar panels, maybe even improvised wind or hydro rigs. Those sources rarely sit where you actually need the electricity. Without extension cords, you're stuck dragging heavy, noisy equipment right next to your living space just to power a single tool. That's inefficient at best and dangerous at worst. A heavy-duty cord changes the game. You can park a generator a safe distance away, keeping the fumes, heat, and noise out of your shelter, while still running a heater, pump, or fridge inside. You can route solar panel power straight to a battery bank across your yard. You can even run lighting discreetly into a hidden shelter without moving your entire setup. That flexibility is survival gold. In terms of barter, extension cords are pure value. Most people won't have thought to stock them, but everyone with any kind of power source will need them. A single rugged, outdoor-rated cord could be traded for food, tools, or fuel. Even damaged cords hold value. The copper inside can be stripped for wiring, radio antennas, or repair projects, and the plugs can be repurposed. They're also critical for efficiency. In a rationed power world, you might only get a 2-hour generator window each day. With cords, you can charge multiple devices in sequence without dragging everything to the machine. Radios, lamps, battery packs, you can run them in rotation, maximizing every watt. Don't underestimate stealth either. A black cord running under a tarp lets you power devices quietly, without anyone outside noticing a bright generator humming at your doorstep. In collapse scenarios, being discreet isn't paranoia. It's protection. The bottom line, extension cords may not look flashy, but they connect your survival gear to the power sources that keep you alive. Without them, every watt of energy becomes harder to use, riskier to manage, and easier to lose. Keep them dry, keep them coiled, and above all, keep them, because when the blackout comes, cords aren't clutter, they're your connection to survival. 8. Multi-tool knife. In everyday life, a multi-tool knife is a convenience. In a blackout world, it's a survival powerhouse. One small piece of steel combines a knife, pliers, screwdrivers, can opener, file, and sometimes even a saw. That compact versatility means the difference between solving a problem in minutes or being completely stuck. Imagine trying to open a sealed food can without the right tool. Sure, you could bash it with a rock, but you'll waste food, risk injury, and look desperate. A multi-tool makes the job clean, fast, and safe. Need to repair a broken lantern handle? Tighten a loose screw on your generator, cut cordage for a tarp shelter, the multi-tool does all of it in seconds. The real value comes from its size. Instead of hauling a full toolbox, you've got critical tools in your pocket at all times. In a crisis, mobility matters. When you're bugging out, scavenging, or defending supplies, you don't have space for a backpack full of hardware. But you can always carry a multi-tool. Now let's talk lending. Nobody ever returns a good knife, and a multi-tool is worse. It's too useful. Once someone uses it to fix their shelter or cook their meal, they'll find 100 reasons not to give it back. That means if you loan it out, you've just given away one of your most important problem-solving tools. Durability seals the deal. Quality multi-tools are made from stainless steel, built to last decades if you keep them clean and oiled. In a barter economy, they'll be worth their weight in food or medicine. But again, barter them only if you're ready to part with them permanently. Bottom line, in a collapse, problems pile up fast. The person with a multi-tool can solve them. The person without is at the mercy of others. Never lend it out, because once it leaves your pocket, it's gone for good. 9. Portable water filter. When the grid fails, tap water becomes a gamble. Pumps shut down, treatment plants stop running, and the clear water you trusted yesterday could be contaminated tomorrow. That's why a portable water filter is more than handy. It's life insurance. Unlike boiling, which takes time and fuel, a filter gives you safe water almost instantly. Whether it's a river, pond, or even a muddy puddle, a good filter removes parasites, bacteria, and most harmful contaminants. One small device can produce hundreds, sometimes thousands of liters of safe drinking water. Think about what that means in a crisis. Instead of hauling heavy jugs or wasting hours boiling water, you can drink on demand. That saves energy, saves fuel, and keeps you mobile. In survival terms, that's priceless. And here's the brutal truth. Lending it out is suicide. The first time someone's child gets sick from dirty water, they'll forget to return your filter. Because in their mind, that device isn't a borrowed item. It's the line between life and death. Filters also have stealth value. Boiling water makes smoke and smells, announcing to everyone nearby that you've got both fuel and clean water. Using a filter leaves no trace. You can hydrate quietly without attracting desperate neighbors. Barter value, off the charts. In a blackout economy, clean water is as valuable as gold. People will trade food, tools, even shelter just for the ability to keep their family hydrated without risk. But if you trade away your filter, you're gambling with your own survival. Portable water filters are light, compact, and often fit in a pocket or bug-out bag. yet their impact is enormous. The bottom line, water is survival and a filter turns unsafe sources into lifelines. Loan it out, and you're giving away the one thing your body can't live without. 10. Hand crank radio. When the world goes dark, information becomes as critical as food and water. A hand crank radio may look old-fashioned, but in a blackout it's your only reliable link to the outside world. Unlike smartphones that die in hours, a crank radio powers itself. A few turns of the handle and you've got access to emergency broadcasts, weather alerts, and even community updates if local stations are operating. Some models even include built-in flashlights and USB charging ports, giving you light and a way to top up small devices. But the real value is intelligence. Knowing a storm is coming lets you reinforce your shelter before it hits. Hearing about evacuation zones helps you avoid danger before it arrives. And picking up chatter on AM, FM, or shortwave frequencies can tell you whether society is collapsing everywhere or just in your region. In survival, knowledge is power. Here's why you never lend it. People panic in the dark. When someone hears you've got a working radio, they'll beg, plead, or demand to borrow it just for one night. But once they start relying on that flow of information, you'll never get it back. Because in collapse, information is control, and no one gives up control willingly. Durability makes crank radios even more valuable. They don't need batteries, don't need the grid, and many are water resistant. With basic care, they'll keep running for years, giving you an advantage most others won't have. Barter is another angle. A functioning radio in a blackout is rare, and people will pay heavily to hear news or contact loved ones. But handing it over permanently might leave you blind. Trade only if you've got extras. Bottom line, in survival, the uninformed are the vulnerable. A crank radio keeps you informed, alert, and prepared. Loan it out, and you're giving someone else the edge that should have been yours. When the lights go out, survival isn't about fancy gear or expensive gadgets. It's about the simple, everyday items that suddenly become priceless. An extension cord, a water filter, even an old-school alarm clock, once they're gone, you can't just run to the store and replace them. That's the harsh reality of a blackout. So remember this: lending these tools out doesn't make you generous, it makes you vulnerable. In a crisis, the people who hold on to their essentials are the ones who stay in control. The ones who give them away, they end up at the mercy of everyone else. If you want to be ready for when the grid goes down, guard these items like your life depends on it. Because one day it just might. And if you found this breakdown useful, hit that subscribe button now. Stay prepared, stay sharp, and don't get caught in the dark.